Can I just say something about Andrea?
We know the state is going to have to prove when Adrian Gonzalez realized the risk to the children inside the Uvalde school and what he could have done to prevent it from happening. So we're going to turn now to start looking at how they're making their case. What are they doing and presenting to establish these elements that they're going to need to prove to be able to get a conviction? So I'm going to be doing this a little bit differently than I normally do. And there's a couple of reasons for that. This is a terrible trial to watch. There's just really no way to get around it. There is so much trauma, so much pain and horror. And frankly, the prosecution is leaning very heavily into that part of the case, at least during the initial stages. So I don't necessarily want to focus super heavily on that, other than to just acknowledge that it's happening. And there was another thing that caught my attention as soon as the opening statements were over. And the judge is kind of telling the jury what's coming next. And one of the things he tells them is that he sees they've been taking notes, and that's great. And they can do that to help them focus on what it is that they're seeing. But they aren't going to be able to take their notes into deliberations. The bailiff is going to take the notes before the jury starts to deliberate. And that really caught my attention, because it means they aren't going to be able to go into the jury room with a detailed record of who said what and when, and potential contradictions and timelines and all of these things that normally you would think would be kind of significant in a case like this. But no, they're going to end up ultimately being a lot more dependent on the impressions that they get, because that's ultimately what's going to stick. Very unlikely that, second by second replays and details and things like that are going to factor in. So this is going to be much more of a 10,000-foot view experience of the case for the jurors. And so I thought I'll kind of maybe just go ahead and approach it in the same manner myself. So I'm going to take this week by week. Part of the reason I'm doing that is because this case so far seems like it might go on forever. So just for purposes of efficiency, there's no need to get bogged down in a lot of details, particularly when quite a bit of it is repetitive. But I'm also starting to see a structure in how the prosecution is presenting their case emerge. And it does so far seem to be kind of consistent with these large categories of approaches and evidence that they're taking and how it's all organized. And so in this first week, what I largely saw was the prosecution setting the stage. We're getting a lot of background information, preliminary information, leading up into just probably a lot more detail than we needed about what happened to those children inside that school when the shooter went in that day. But because impressions are so important in this case, there is going to be some evidence that I'm going to share with you, because these are the things that really landed with me. And so possible, I can't guarantee the jury is going to have the same impression of things that I am, but it's possible, if it hit me, it may have hit the jury as well. And so this may be the kind of information that is going to stick with them when they do, in fact, go back into that deliberation room. And so we know from the doctrine of primacy and recency, the first thing that happens is important. The last thing that's important, that last thing that happens is important. Those are the things that tend to stick with people. And so the choice to start with Gilbert Limones was, I thought, well, it was an interesting choice by the prosecution. Gilbert Limones is a employee of the funeral home that is across the street from Uvalde School, from Robb Elementary. And so on the day that this happened, just been at work apparently, normal day like any other day, when the shooter's truck crashes through the gate, like we heard in the opening statements. It crashes through the gate outside the school, ends up inside a culvert, a concrete culvert. And so they approach to see if the driver needs assistance. And they see that the driver has a gun and he begins to shoot at them. They run back to the funeral home and kind of watch what unfolds as the shooter hops the fence between the culvert and Robb Elementary School and begins to approach the school with the rifle. So they make 2 911 calls. Gilbert Limones makes 2 911 calls. I'm going to warn you guys right off the bat. This is going to be the worst stuff, I think, that I'm probably going to share with you. And again, part of the reason why is because this is a case about impressions, and this is going to be the first impression that the jury has about everything that happened here. Their first real encounter with the emotion of the case. And I'm just not really sure that this is going to get the prosecution where they want to go, because what starts to emerge from all of this is a picture of a lot of chaos. And so when the prosecution has to show ADRIAN Gonzalez had this clear knowledge, a pathway to prevent what unfolded and didn't take it, chaos is not really going to be helpful. This 911 call is going to show the speed at which things unfolded, and ultimately what information was available. This is going to be developed into what was communicated, what was not communicated. So basically what any of the officers responding to the scene would have been able to know at the time. So again, warning, I will put up a timestamp when this 911 call is over. There's 2 of them, like I said, so we're going to watch both of them. I'll put a timestamp when it's over so that if you do not want to expose yourself to this, and I don't blame you, it is extremely traumatic, then you can check back in when it's over. But we are going to go ahead and turn to the first 911 call now.
Uvalde County 911. Yes, ma'am. Somebody just had an accident over here. I know you're just. You think I didn't throw it? Somebody killing a gun. I'm shooting gun. Oh my God, they just got shot at us. They shot at you? Yeah. Listen to the guy from the school over here. He's in the back. He's got a cheering hitting at the school. Hurry, please. He's in the bed. Oh my God. Oh my God. He's jumping into the schoolyard. He's jumping into the schoolyard, man. Are you in the schoolyard? Yes, he just jumped up on the fence. He's running toward the school. Oh my God. He's wearing black. He's up his knees. Okay, we do have multiple officers sitting out that way. You think he's wearing black? No, yes, he's walking. He's walking across to the Robb here right to the funeral home. We're coming from at the funeral home. Oh my gosh. Okay, there's 1 officers that are heading out that way. What do you think? There's kids out there. There's kids out there, please. Oh, he's shooting at a truck that's going by. Hurry! Yes, sir. We have multiple units heading out that way. Oh my God, these kids. Oh my goodness. Oh my God. Oh my God. Father, please, in the name of Jesus. Oh my God. Lord, please. on the thing. Oh my God, this is thinking about the shoes. Oh my God, he's shooting the table. Maybe it's too late. Oh, Jesus. Hallelujah. Oh, Jesus, I just asked for it. I didn't believe it. Oh, Jesus. Oh my God. Oh my Lord. Oh my goodness, he shot at us. Oh my God. The UVALDE school is out there. Okay, just a dive officer there. I'm going to go to disconnect with you, okay? Okay. Sorry. Yes, sir. Thank you.
So that is the first of the 911 calls. The thing that I noticed really listening to that and watching it is ADRIAN Gonzales's reactions to it. He is really stoic throughout most of this trial, but you see a lot of mouth movements from him, reactions, kind of eye motions and things like that. And this is the first time I really started to feel some sympathy for him because what it tells me is that this is an empathetic human. This isn't somebody who's just, callously looking out for his own self-interest, doesn't care about anybody else or anything like that. You can see him responding to the stress and the fear of what he's hearing on that phone call, what that gentleman is experiencing. Approaches a car, gets shot at, and then sees the gunman starting to approach the school, and he starts to get panicked. So that phone call, as you could hear, lasted maybe a little bit over a minute. We're going to listen to the second one now. This is worse. This gets worse. So just bear in mind the timeline. The dispatcher has received the information from him that he's gone over the fence, he's in black, he's going towards a school, he has a rifle, he's shooting. All of this information is known from that first 911 call. About a minute later, she hangs up, tells them officers are on the way. Lots of them. Going to go ahead and disconnect you now. And we'll move to now what we get next.
You gotta get inside the Get inside the Okay, then we do have you guys to the building. Oh my God. Oh God, in the name of Jesus, he's inside the school shooting at the kids. He's right there. Oh my God, you went inside the school. Yeah, we have multiple units inside of the school. They have locations inside the school.
So the prosecution has set the stage with the horror, the absolute unequivocal horror that was experienced by everyone close to this incident. And continuing to make sure they knew he's shooting at the kids. He is inside the school. He's shooting at the kids. We know from the evidence that unfolds that the massacre, it took place pretty much immediately. You know, within the first minute to 2 minutes of him being inside the school, pretty much everybody who was going to be shot and killed was shot and killed. So the time frame to act was quite short. Seconds mattered. Seconds mattered. Now, the prosecution decided to build then on this context by showing us a surveillance video from outside of the funeral home. There's two different angles. We'll watch both of those as well, because those show this event unfold and they show the response. And once again, I'm just going to find this not really helpful to the prosecution in terms of what they need to prove. I'll let you guys judge for it yourselves when we look at it. But we're going to see, I think the most important thing is that Adrian Gonzalez was not the only person who responded, and he was not the only person who had an opportunity to act. And so right off the bat, I think this is starting to raise some questions about what did he know that everybody else didn't? And what was he in a position to do that others were not? So let's go ahead and take a look. These are both a couple of minutes each. We'll take a look at both scenes. Again, the times are kind of important, but the jury isn't going to be able to remember them in detail. They're just going to have a broad overview of kind of minute by minute how quickly things unfolded. For like the first minute, nothing happens. Just let you know that. It's a little bit after 11:28. We will see the truck go through the fence and end up in the culvert. And in all other respects, up to that point, it's just a perfectly normal day here.
So, Mr. Leon, so I think what we're about to do is about to get to that point. I just wanted to point that out to you. We're just about 10 seconds from the original array.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There it goes into the culvert.
So was that the wreck?
That was right. Yes, sir. That was right.
And the next thing we'll see then is you and your cohort going over to check on this.
Correct.
Thank you.
11:28:30. how fast this unfolds compared to how fast, like,
Okay, pause it. Okay, we have 11:29:05 on the counter. Do you see yourself on that video?
Yes, sir.
And would you point that out for the jury?
That would be the first person on the right-hand side.
You'd be the person on the right-hand side?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
so it's been just about 1 minute since the crash. And now they start to run. Now remember, he is on the phone with 911 at this time. He approached on 911 and was shot
That
at.
fairly inaccurately depicted when you turned and ran and came back in as the shots were fired.
Yes, sir.
How many shots were fired?
To us, I couldn't tell you, to be honest with you. There's quite a bit. I just remember bullets grazing us.
So it was more than that.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So we are still in the point of that first 911 call. Why they are choosing not to show the screen, you know.
Could you just tell us what is this gunman doing at this point?
Yes, sir. At that point, I'm already inside the building, and I'm at the far right-hand office right here at the corner.
Okay.
And I'm watching him, and I'm calling 911 and telling them that I saw him where he jumped up. He threw first a duffel bag across. And as soon when he threw the duffel bag, then he jumped the fence himself, and then he started walking towards the school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it takes
We'll
about
watch
1
that until
minute.
we
They
get
don't
to
show us that
11:31,
part.
36 and ask you what we see there.
But the shooter goes over the fence towards the school. Then yet another minute now, about 3 minutes since the accident. We see this white car pull up. This is Adrian Gonzalez.
Stop. And so around 11:31:36, is that when we saw the white car?
Yes, sir.
And is that the white car that you saw drive to the south
Yes, sir.
end of the building?
Yes, sir.
And the next camera angle will show better where that car was. Is that
Yes, sir.
correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And they continue to, not show us the relevant stuff. But so Adrian Gonzalez, we see him drive into the schoolyard towards the back. It's been about a minute since the shooter went over the fence. Now we start to see other cop cars arrive.
Okay, do we see other police cars arriving at this time?
Yes, sir. I see them arriving over here at this time.
At that intersection?
Yes, sir.
Of where the wreck happened?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what is the time on the counter?
11:32:25.
Thank you.
So about 1 minute after Adrian got there. They do not drive into the schoolyard. They stay there at the intersection. Those precious seconds are ticking away.
Okay, just stop it here. And we have it at about 11:33:35, and I'll ask you to describe what you see happen as we start it back up.
So now these cars have been on the scene for about a minute. And now.
And honestly, I didn't know that the police officers were in that corner, because that's when I was with 911 calling, looking at towards the school.
You were looking at the other direction.
Yes, sir. Because that vehicle, because I'm like trying to figure out, okay, where, all I remember is a UPD officer showing up, and I didn't know they were stopped right there.
You didn't actually see it, but do you have any reason to believe this wasn't accurately depicting the events as they occurred?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay. Start it back.
They do not drive into the school. They drive past the front. Another goes flying by. Another one now goes into the back. Now 3 minutes since Adrian first got there.
Okay, just stop it here. Mr. Limones, do you see another white car there at that point?
Yes, sir.
And is that the second car that you saw heading the same direction that the first white car?
No, I've never seen no other vehicles other than just a white one. And this is the first time I've ever seen this.
Okay, we'll look at the next section then.
Okay.
Okay. But would you note the time is 11:34:57? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And so those vehicles also go ahead and head back into the school. We're going to turn now to the second angle. We're going to kind of rewatch a lot of what we already saw, but from a different angle. So you can see right across the street here is what they will refer to throughout this trial as the teacher's parking lot. The crash occurred over on the right-hand side, the culvert. You can't really see the fence, but it's kind of approximately in the far right side of this pergola. And so we'll see it all unfold one more time. Again, remember the time frame. The accident happens about 11:28:30. Takes them about a minute to get over there. They're on 911 at that time, so 11:29:30 is roughly the time that 911 is first learning there's somebody here that is shooting, and he's going over the fence towards the school. He's in all black, etc. It is about 2 minutes after that, after he goes over the fence, that Adrian Gonzalez arrives in his car. It is 1 minute after that that the other police officers arrive in that intersection to the right. They sit there for a minute, and then ultimately take off down the street, and it's another couple of minutes before any other vehicles arrive to go towards the back of the school.
You're looking at the front end of the funeral home,
And where is Robb? Where is the Robb School?
directly across the street in front of the funeral home.
And on the screen, is it on the left side of the screen or the right side of the screen?
What is the Robb School? It's on the left side of the screen,
And where does the wreck occur?
on the right-hand side of the screen.
Thank you.
So the wreck has happened now. Can't really see it from this angle. It's been about a minute since the wreck. So we know now that the shooter had shot at Mr. Limones and his fellow employee.
Okay,
And we
stop.
can just
Can you
start
see
to see
the man who had the wreck
Movement.
done on you at this point?
Yes, sir.
And would you point that out? You might have to stand up and point that out for the jury.
Yes, sir.
right here.
Right there. And what's he doing is, as we've stopped the camera right there at 11:30.16,
He was jumping the fence at that point.
he's jumping the fence,
Yes, sir.
and now we're going to see him walk toward the Robb School.
Yes, sir.
And if you might just point it out one more time as he starts walking, just so make sure we see him.
Yes,
It's
sir.
kind of small from here.
So he'll walk along basically the top of that pergola.
Yes, if you will.
This is where he's walking right now. And then he does out of view for a little bit because there's some bush there. And he starts walking this direction. And that's where he's at.
Okay. And now look, you see, it's just a very dark blur of walking across the school ground.
Yes, sir.
Just came out from behind that bush, approaching the parking lot.
And would you tell us to stop the video when he gets to the parking lot?
Yes, sir. Right there's where you're starting to step foot into the parking lot.
11:31, about 21 or 22.
And you can tell he's walking in between the two vehicles at that point.
He's walking between the vehicles at 11:31, around 21 or 22. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And now we're going to move ahead about 15 seconds. I'm going to ask you what you see there.
Yes, sir.
Well, I may Misjudged the time. Stop. So it's 11:31:42. Can you tell us what we saw there?
Yes, sir. That's a white vehicle that I saw approaching into the schoolyard.
So about 20 seconds after the gunman reaches the parking lot, then you see a
Yes, sir.
white car and it's headed toward that same direction.
Correct. Yes, sir.
So we can see where he goes from here, past the back side of the parking lot, booking it.
And you can stop it there. So around 11:31:50, he's out of sight, but he's close to that south side of that last.
Yes, sir. At that when what I remember seeing is that the gentleman was between the two vehicles towards the front end of the vehicles, and that's when I saw the white vehicle that was going really fast that went right by him.
So the gunman was still at the southwest side of the building.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop this one here because we've already seen the cars, the other police cars go past and so forth. But the important thing I thought about this particular section was seeing how the shooter had gotten into the parking lot, and Mr. Limones describes him as being in between the two cars. And it's several seconds later before Mr. Gonzalez drives by. So we're able to see with our own eyes a couple of things. One, that there, is no visible overlap of him driving past where we can see the shooter, where we could be like, oh, I can see the shooter and I could see him. Therefore, he can probably see the shooter as well. The speed at which he is driving back there, it's notable. I noticed it. I mean, this is like a dirt area. He's in a little sedan car. He was booking it back there. And the reason I noticed it is because it seemed to stand in a little bit of contrast with what I saw from the other police vehicles that just kind of like tootled to the intersection, waited for a minute, and then like one drove faster than the other ones did, but a couple just kind of drove normal speed down the road in front of the school. And at this point, we don't know yet where they went or what they did. So this was the prosecution's introduction to what happened and what Adrian Gonzalez knew and what he was supposed to do about it. And it's already kind of muddy, isn't it? It is for me, because I don't see that he saw the shooter. We heard Mr. Limones giving the 911 operator quite a bit of information, or a sort of running description of what was happening. But we don't know if or how that information was communicated. Not finding out those details yet at this point in time. And then we also have this contrast right off the bat between what Adrian Gonzalez is doing and what these other police officers are doing. So the time frame starts to be a little bit more significant because we know things are unfolding quickly. They're on the scene within about a minute. What were they doing? What should they, is there nothing they should have done differently? We're just already kind of starting to wonder, why is Adrian Gonzalez the one that is getting the particular focus here? So the next few witnesses that the state went through were crime scene folks. They responded to the car accident, the truck, and searched the area near the truck. They found a whole bunch of loaded magazines, like, I don't even remember how many, 8, 6, something like that. A lot of just loose loaded magazines in this truck. 30 capacity rifle magazines, another rifle outside the car, some spent shell casings, some loose bullets, and things like that. But they also gave a little bit more context that were kind of light bulb moments for me. The very first crime scene guide that testified described how he had to come from a different area. This is apparently pretty remote, Uvalde. It's in the San Antonio kind of area, but it's not like next to San Antonio. It's maybe a couple hours away. This guy wasn't that far away, but he said he was about an hour away. The situation already sounds chaotic when he arrives. He says there's cop cars that were blocking the road and it was preventing an ambulance from being able to get in. They had to go through like a shuffle to get cop cars moved so that the ambulance could arrive. This seems like a pretty big failure of emergency response. If there's people shot, people injured, and the ambulance can't get to them, this is chaotic. This is very disorganized. The other thing that he said that kind of went off for me, like are you kidding me, was that the breach occurred while he was there, meaning the breach into the room where the shooter was occurred while he was there. It took him an hour to get there. So they didn't get into that room for an hour. I wasn't aware of a lot of these details. And so I know, folks who are more familiar with what happened there already knew that. We'll find out later. 73 minutes. 73 minutes from police arriving at the scene to going through that door and eliminating the shooter. But I didn't know that. So that for me was a real holy shit. We're talking about 1 minute on Adrian Gonzales's part, approximately, according to the best I could make of the prosecutor's opening statement. And 73 minutes before all of them went in to face the danger. So again, just already kind of right off the bat, a point of comparison that doesn't really seem very helpful for the prosecution. It just raises questions in my mind about why didn't any of them get in sooner? 370 some officers, we find out at some point, responded to this scene. We have singled out Adrian Gonzalez as having some unique knowledge or opportunity to do something to intervene. But 73 minutes it took 370 some officers to get in there and neutralize that gunman. So it puts it in context for me because there's clearly concerns and limitations that were not unique to Mr. Gonzalez. They were shared by apparently every single officer on the scene. We started at this point then to get into testimony from teachers, school employees, and folks like that who were present at the scene. This was also often some very difficult testimony to watch, just because of the effect that this experience had on those witnesses. One of them, this after-school program coordinator, was possibly the most traumatized person I've ever seen on a witness stand, ever. She was shaking so hard the entire time she was on the stand. She could barely talk. At the end of her testimony, she said it herself. It haunts me to this day. It haunts her. So the first teacher that we heard from, she was a third grade teacher. Now, for context, the building where the shooting took place is where the fourth grade classrooms are located. So this third grade teacher, her class was not in that building. They were in one of the other buildings on campus. But she had been taking her kids out to the playground. And the playground is kind of beyond the teacher's parking lot where we could see in that last video, down at that far south end of campus. She's walking her kids out to the playground. We start to hear what the context is of the school day. This was awards day for the elementary school. It was a little bit of an informal day. They didn't have their regular class schedule because they have their award ceremony. Several of the kids would go home after that. But those that didn't, they would do things like watch movies and have, just special activities, pizza party, kinds of things going on. So this was a special day for the kids. She was taking hers out to the playground when she heard a loud noise that she described sounded like a dumpster, like when the dumpster trucks come to pick up the trash. Those big metal trash receptacles, bangs around. It's got the fork lift kind of thing that lifts it up, makes a lot of noise. She thought it sounded like that. And it was strange because the timing wasn't right. You don't normally hear that in the middle of the day. But they continued, got to the playground. At that point, she heard sounds like fireworks. And then over the radio, she had a radio. There was a coach in the area who yelled at them to get inside. So they ran towards the classroom, and she describes at this point that she saw the shooter on the south sidewalk of the school, and that he was dressed all in black. He was walking towards the door. He had long hair, and she saw the gun. This created quite a stir because, unfortunately, the chaos here is not just limited to the response to the shooting. It's also kind of going to infect the prosecution from the very first day of the case, because the defense didn't know any of this. It had not been disclosed to them that apparently during her final interview, her final trial preparation with the prosecuting attorney's office, this was the first time this witness had ever said she saw the shooter and she saw him south of the school and so forth. The defense is taking issue with this because their approach to the case is very dependent on the timeline and the very specific timeline that they have created. We saw in the opening statement, they've got this broken down to the second, and it makes sense because what Adrian Gonzalez knew and when he knew it is going to be a very, very critical detail to whether the prosecution has been able to make its case or not. So we ended up with a little impromptu hearing on non-disclosure of evidence. We got a prosecutor sworn to give testimony, and this woman prosecutor, insufferable. Rather than just dealing with the situation directly, what did you know? When did you find it out? How was it different than what you knew previously? Did you disclose it to the defense or did you not? What's in your notes from this interview, etc.? She just kind of kept trying to turn it around and either make it the defense's fault or, just be defensive about it. The defense knew or should have known everything. They've got an open file policy, invited the defense to come in and look at anything, anytime. They didn't do that. It's their fault. So just this really, really obnoxious blame shifting. It didn't work. The defense points out the obligation is on the state to disclose. And she tried to kind of play games with what she knew and when she figured out that there was a discrepancy here in the information that she had provided. But the defense nails her down on the timeline for that as well. They ended up losing the whole second day of trial to deal with this issue. Instead of bringing the jury back and taking evidence, they have this hearing on what was going to happen as the result of this non-disclosure. And so what ultimately happened was this rather unique remedy that the defense proposed. The defense wanted to, they called it unring the bell, have a chance to unring the bell and then strike her testimony. And so basically what that means is they wanted to cross-examine her on the discrepancies between her trial testimony and what she had previously said in her initial interview with law enforcement shortly after the day, and then also to the grand jury. The point, I mean, I think being that they wanted to undermine the significance of this testimony in the first place, but then ultimately take the remedy of striking it. So the court did not grant a mistrial, didn't find that this was a willful violation, found that it was negligent, but did give the defense what they wanted to do. So the defense was able to cross-examine this witness when they came back on the next day. The defense was able to cross-examine this witness and elicit that she had never at any point mentioned seeing the shooter before that. In fact, when she gave her initial interview to law enforcement right after the incident happened, she told them she wasn't even aware that a school shooting had taken place or was ongoing until they were in lockdown and she received a text from her husband that told her what was going on. So this is not shocking to me. If you've followed any of the cases I followed, this is an issue that comes up a lot. We talk about it a lot. The fallibility of human memory, particularly under highly traumatic, highly stressful situations. Memory is not a rewind button on a VHS. For some of us are that old. It's a VHS. It's not a recording that you just go back and rewatch. Every time you revisit that memory, it's a rewriting process. It's an editing process, and it's extremely common to incorporate new information into the old memories, to incorporate our wishes and hopes, or what we wanted to happen, into our memory of what actually did. And so memories are very easily tainted. This is not any indication of like malice on the part of the teacher. And the defense is doing an outstanding job, in my opinion, of handling that, of pointing out we are not attacking anybody's character here. We understand this was the most stressful day you have ever had in your life, and hopefully ever will have in your entire life. It's normal for these types of things to happen. Nobody's impugning anybody's character or suggesting that there's malice. They have a way of dealing with this that I find helpful. They're getting a lot of leeway for just style things in this case that you wouldn't necessarily get in other courtrooms, but they get to be very conversational. And so one of the things that they are doing is, with each of these witnesses that they're going to confront with discrepancies, they're telling the witness right off the bat, when we were in jury selection, the jury gave us permission to ask hard questions. They're making it clear that was part of what they did in their approach to voir dire, was to make sure these jurors weren't going to hold it against them. If they have to do their job, they have to point out inconsistencies with these people that are extremely sympathetic, extremely traumatized, didn't do anything wrong, are almost certainly struggling with survivor's guilt, their own remorse, and things along those lines. So it's allowing them to, I think, be able to take a lot of the oomph out of some of these facts that the prosecution is presenting in a way that isn't running the risk that they're coming off as major assholes to the jury. It's very impressive to watch. So they effectively impeach this witness with the prior statements, and the testimony is then stricken in its entirety. And the jury's told you're not to consider it any further. Now, this puts the defense in a little bit of an interesting and perhaps kind of awkward position now, because they really are now going to want to finish this trial this time, regardless of what other types of issues or errors may come up. There's a real strong incentive for them not to go for a mistrial, because the reason they got this remedy wasn't because we need to slap the prosecutors on the wrist because they did something bad. No, the court found this was negligent. This wasn't intentional. This was negligent. And so it's a corrective type of sanction that was given. It was acknowledging, look, this affected how the jurors prepared in their jury selection. It affected how they conducted their opening. The defense team, it affected how they prepared their opening, how they've cross-examined the witnesses so far. This is something that created an unfair situation for them. And so it was meant to level the playing field and to remedy that unfairness. But that's a notice issue. It's because they didn't know this was coming that they had that disadvantage. And so if they end up in a situation where we're retrying the case, they're no longer at that disadvantage. Now they know. Now they know that this witness is going to say that. They still have all the same impeachment material that they had before, but you're increasing the risk now of potentially really unfavorable evidence being able to come in a retrial that on this occasion it's been excluded. So they've got a strong incentive to get through this kind of come hell or high water. And we'll have to see how that ends up unfolding. The last thing we got from this witness that I'm going to point out, just because it came up in opening when I heard the high schoolers were at Mexican Park, I'm like, this surely is not called Mexican Park. No, it isn't. This teacher kindly clarified for us that Mexican Park is the nickname that they have for it in that community because it is named after some Mexican guy. I looked at a map and I think it's De Leon Park. De Leon. So appreciated her clearing that up. That's what Mexican Park was all about. The after-school coordinator, who was so incredibly traumatized, described how she had been outside the west side of the building. She was getting supplies. Somebody else had gone to the store. They were coming back with the supplies. She had a cart to bring the supplies back into the building, and was outside when the crash happened and the shooter started approaching and heard the shots. And so she ran back inside to warn everybody, get inside, somebody's coming. And she called 911 as well. And ultimately she hid in a closet and was able to survive the incident. So we're starting to get closer and closer at this point to the people that are involved, that survived this. We heard from two school teachers on the west side of the building. I guess before we go there, I'm going to share with you one of the things that came up this week that was particularly helpful from the setting the scene is we did finally, we got a map. We got a map of this entire area. And so we can see this is the building, this is the parking lot. And so this is the west side of the building, and the numbers of the rooms are going to be helpful here. It's 102 down here. This is what they're going to call the south entry. Up here is what they're going to call the west entry. From south to north, it goes on the west side, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106. Here are the closets. This is where the after-school coordinator had to hide. And then over here on the east side of the building, going from south to north, we have 108, 109, 110, 111, and 112. Room 111 and room 112 are where the deaths occurred. This is where the shooter was able to get into these rooms and ultimately, cause the tragedy that he caused. So this is our general lay of the land, and this is going to be important because what we hear from these witnesses, particularly these teachers, we hear from the one in room 102 and then two rooms up there in room 104. We hear from both of them that the shooter comes up this west side of the building and is shooting through the windows. We get some crime scene evidence as well, some texts and so forth that respond. They're looking at bullet defects and they're showing how bullets came through the windows. They went into the ceiling. They went into the walls. Some of them actually went through the walls and into the classrooms on the opposite side of the hallway. There are bullet casings all outside this area. As the shooter is approaching. So what we hear from the witnesses is that as the shooter we know is coming from this side. He came, between the cars, as Mr. Limones testified that were there in the parking lot. He kind of comes down here towards the south end of the parking lot, and we hear that he is shooting towards the pavilion. So I will show. Oops, hang on here. I will show you the pavilion if I can find it. My timestamps started to misbehave for me here. All right. Okay, here's the one that I am looking for. So this is a photograph. This is that south walkway that we can see. The south door is over on this side. This wall that we're looking at here is the west wall. This is the pavilion that they're referring to. And so the playground area is back here. The third grade teacher who testified about bringing her kids out to the playground, they are coming back to this area. So we hear that the shooter is shooting towards the pavilion over here and then comes up along this west side of the building. You can just barely see right here this white car. This white car, first off, I want to be clear. They don't clarify when they're sharing these photographs what the timing is here, if this is meant to be any kind of reconstruction or if this is actually, where the cars were positioned at the time. But I do want to be clear that I do not believe this is not Adrian Gonzalez's car. This is the second white car that we saw come in during that first surveillance video. Adrian's car is further over to the left over here. So don't get confused if you see that. One of the reasons why this photograph is important, and there is another photograph of this area as well, this one right here. This is along the west side with some of those shell casings as the shooter is starting to come up and shoot out these windows. This corner, this fenced in area with all of these air conditioning units, this is going to end up being kind of important, this whole corner, because we're going to be looking at what did Adrian Gonzalez know? When did he know it? So what could he see? What could he perceive? And then what could he do about it? So the lay of the land is very important. And this particular corner here is going to end up being a rather important part of the lay of the land. So let me get our map of the classroom area back up. Right here. So the west door is where the shooter entered. Comes in through the west door into the hallway, ultimately is able to go into room 111 and then through this adjoining door here into room 112. And that is where the killings took place. The defense, while the state is kind of highlighting this background, what happened, and so forth, the defense is starting to draw out the things that were beyond Adrian's control. So we already know this corner down here, the defense focuses on this. This is going to be kind of important. This is not something that's in his control. He doesn't control the layout of the area, how the building is built or anything like that. Adrian's car is going to be down here towards this intersection with the other sidewalk. So we have that distance that has to be dealt with. These doors are supposed to be locked. These exterior doors are supposed to be locked. And so the defense is going to focus very heavily on the circumstances at the school that ultimately made this a softer target than it needed to be. The exterior doors were supposed to be locked. They were not. So because of that, the shooter was able to gain entry through this door that is really just meant to be like an emergency exit. These are meant to be emergency exits. This over here on the east side is the main entrance into the school. The doors weren't locked. The interior doors are also supposed to lock. What the defense is going to elicit throughout this part of the trial is that there was at best a practice, at worst a policy of bypassing the interior door locks with magnets. The teachers didn't have a key fob type of system, an electronic system where you can just swipe a card to be able to get in and out. And so we're talking about fourth grade. Kids got to run up and use the bathroom. We heard about some things like there's kind of shared resources. Admin needs to come and go. There's just, if people need to come in and out of the classroom, because of the locking door, the fact that it's a mechanical lock with a key, it ends up being disruptive to the classroom to have to, get up and open and close the door for people. So they developed this practice of bypassing the locks with magnets. And that is ultimately what allowed the shooter to be able to enter into this room 111 because that door was not locked. The teacher from, I think it was room 104, the teacher from room 104 testified about she had been out in the hallway when I believe it was the after school teacher or somebody came through shouting, get in the room. He's coming. And so she got back into her classroom, but her door was not locked and she didn't have time to lock it. So while they are hunkered down in the classroom, that teacher is aware. A teacher is aware they are sitting ducks. They are vulnerable. And I can't help but imagine the experience, the terror, and just how that's going to affect you. That sense of, I fucked up, big time. But also that sense of, I got lucky. The shooter could have just as easily come in that room. But he didn't. She got lucky. And that's the type of thing that makes survivor's guilt such a difficult, terrible thing to deal with, because there's no rhyme or reason. It's not like, you deserved it and they didn't. But people can't help but go through in their minds, why did I get lucky? Why did I get lucky and they didn't? Ultimately, the children in these rooms and the teachers, they are evacuated out of the windows on this west side. The law enforcement is able to get through here and basically break out the windows, get the windows open, get everybody evacuated from this side. So we hear that story. And then the week concludes with the state just really needing to, I guess, hammer home the horror of what happened, as if we didn't know how bad it was. They go into a lot of the details of the crime scene response, the number of the children, where they were. They're showing the jurors the bloody photographs from inside those classrooms. The medical examiner is testifying about the children that died. They're seeing autopsy photos. None of this stuff has anything to do with Adrian or what he knew or what he didn't know. And so I think there's a big risk here that this is going to backfire on the prosecution. I've said before that in the best case scenario, a trial is meant to be a therapeutic process. It's an opportunity for people to be heard, whether it's the defendant who wants somebody to listen to their version of events, or whether it's the victim who wants to be able to express what they went through, get the vindication from the jury that what they suffered was wrong, and be able to, have that help them heal and move on from the process. That's really the ideal situation in a criminal trial. And so there has, I think, the potential for that here, but there has to be a sense that we are all experiencing this trauma now. We are watching these people have to relive the worst day of their lives, the most horrifying thing they've ever had to encounter. There better be a reason for it. Because if there isn't, you have just re-traumatized these people terribly. Absolutely no doubt in my mind that there is a lot of PTSD in the survivors of this incident. There's like no way that there wouldn't be, with how many people were exposed and potentially affected. And having to relive that on the stand, go back into your mind and recall those horrifying details that haunt you to this day, there is a major human cost to that. So there really better be a point. There really better be a reason why we're making those witnesses go through this, why we're making these jurors who didn't ask to be involved in any of it. The jurors are having to see this aftermath. They're having all of the secondary trauma of exposure to what happened to those children, to having to look at it with their eyes. It better be for a reason. And I got to tell you, at the end of the first week, didn't see the state had made a whole lot of progress towards showing us what ADRIAN Gonzalez knew and what he was supposed to do differently. So when we come back, we'll go through the evidence that was presented in the second week. I'm filming this now just as the third week of the trial is getting started. So we'll see a transition in week 2 into a little bit more exploration of the response, what the response was, what the options were, what the limitations were, and so forth. We spent week 1 getting the lay of the land. We're now real crystal clear that a horrible, horrible thing happened. But we're not quite sure yet, how could this have been different? So join me next time. We'll get into week 2 and we'll start looking at the evidence that's presented to help us evaluate that question. Could this have been avoided? Guys, thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.